And I hope we're going to keep the momentum and the inspiration going now as we enter into a dialogue around tribal engagement. It's my pleasure, my sincere pleasure, to introduce Kathy Martinez from the Chief Probation Officers of California. She's been an incredible planning partner for this convening for at least the last 9 months and a lot of behind the scenes as well. So she's been wonderful to work with. She'll be supporting the conversation today with our tribal engagement dialogue. As most of you know, Native American children and families are disproportionately represented in child welfare, and thus it's vital that tribes are an integral part of comprehensive prevention planning and implementation to make real and lasting change. And now I'll turn it over to Kathy and our panelists for a dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. Good morning, everyone. And thank you so very much to Director Johnson and Dr. Ramos for these important messages about the numerous dimensions of prevention, the importance of collaboration and healing. As Elise mentioned, I'm Kathy Martinez. I'm a retired Deputy Chief Probation Officer and a consultant with the Chief Probation Officers of California. And welcome. This morning, we'll hear a dialogue, or more of a conversation really, about tribal engagement to gain a stronger understanding of the true importance of the tribal engagement in our overall prevention work. So just a quick reminder, if you all have any questions, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom bar down there, and we will do our best to get those answered, or hopefully we'll have some time to get to those questions. So this morning we have with us Orianna Walker, Cyndi Alexander, and Elise Jones. I'm going to go ahead and start with some introductions, and then we'll move into a dialogue. So please introduce yourself, Orianna, and share a little bit about your work.
Hi, yes, good morning. My name's Orianna Walker. I'm the ICWA Director, Interim Education Director, CCDF Administrator, and also the Interim Social Service Director for the Picayune Rancheria of the Chukchansi Indians. I'm an enrolled member of the Picayune Rancheria of the Chukchansi Indians. And in our culture, when we introduce ourselves, we always give a little background, a little history of where we come from. So I'm the descendant of Luisa Paloma. My parents are Judy and Eucario Alcantar. I have been blessed with 4 beautiful children. I've been working with my tribe in the ICWA department for the last 15 years. All those years I'm completely blessed with. I have collaborated with many counties and many states over the years. I have established many meaningful relationships with social workers throughout the state of California and other states. I'm very thankful for all of those relationships that have been built. I'm part of the Central Valley Partnership Group that meets to discuss important ICWA issues in the Central Valley and plans events. I'm excited to be here today. I'm excited to sit on this panel with these wonderful ladies and to have this conversation and to hopefully give some information or maybe spark some ideas on how we can further collaborate here within the state of California. So thank you, and I look forward to today's discussion.
Thank you so much, Orianna. Cyndi, you want to go ahead and go next, please?
Sure. Thank you, first of all, committee, for having me here today. My name is Cyndi Alexander. As Orianna shared, our way is to introduce a little bit of our background. So I'm of Kickapoo and Comanche and Yaqui and Chichimex, Mexican people. So was raised with both Native American and Mexican American culture. I have worked for about 30 years now with the social services in different capacities. I really just want to say currently I work for Central California Training Academy as a consultant as well as a trainer for ICWA for the core practice models. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Cyndi. And we have Elise Jones. If you can go next, please.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an honor to be here and speak to such a large audience with such incredible co-presenters, co-panelists. And I first want to, so I'm Elise Jones. I'm the Director of Lake County Behavioral Health Services. But before I go any further, I want to acknowledge that I'm the descendant of colonizers and I'm currently occupying ancestral Pomo land. I have been working in the field of behavioral health for feels like my entire life, but really started in it around 2004. I've been a court-appointed special advocate for kids, a couple of kids. I've worked in outpatient with both adults with severe mental illness as well as kids. I've done residential with kids, and I'm excited to bring my experiences into a position of leadership and use my privilege to advocate for those that don't have a voice.
Thank you, Elise. And thank you, Orianna and Cyndi. So we're going to go ahead and get started in your dialogue. If we can go ahead and start, Elise, with you as to why we have so many county teams, so much leadership in the room today. Can you please share just a little bit about Lake County's journey in engaging tribes?
I can, and I had an opportunity to reflect over the weekend about what that has meant to me. And what surfaced was memories that I had even in elementary school, again, growing up on ancestral Pomo land. And they used to do assemblies where they would dance. And so I had the privilege as a student to watch my classmates, often my classmates, perform their dances for the student body. And in hindsight, that was such an incredible gift. Even to this day, if I'm offered the opportunity to go and be present for a dance, it's hard for me. I even get emotional thinking about it, but I tear up every time because it's so powerful. And so I also had a lot of friends who were tribal or who were Native. And so taking that experience forward into professional experience, I started out just as a regular kind of a social worker going out and working in Lake County. We have a lot of tribal peoples here, or First Nations peoples. And so what I learned very early on was the importance of relationship. Nothing important or meaningful happens outside the context of an authentic relationship. And so as a non-Native person who is going in and trying to work with tribal peoples, the thing that I have to do is center their experience throughout the entire process and to be transparent about what I can do and what I can't do. But overall, again, because I am a white woman with a lot of privilege, I need to be cognizant of that as I'm in the room and how I leverage my personal privilege to support those that I'm working with. In an administrative or leadership capacity, continuing to prioritize relationship and authentic and genuine communication, and also acknowledging what has not worked before and acknowledging wrongdoing. So we may not have started the problem. We may not have been the people who originally colonized this land, but it is our responsibility and mine as, again, a white person with a lot of privilege to help lend support to making things right.
And I think exactly what you're saying, Elise, is the main start. Just acknowledging the history in the past sets a good foundation to having those relationships and opening those doors when talking to tribes and talking to leaders, so that the transparency is there, the healing can start, and so that we can move forward together to develop policies, to see what the needs are in the community, and to be able to speak openly about what has happened in our history, how we can move forward, and what our families need. So I appreciate that.
I too appreciate what you're saying, because it's so important for the counties to understand our culture and understand that they first need to do a lot of listening and observing before they're they're expected to receive any kind of trust. And that's so important that they recognize that, it takes time to do this. And if you understand that, then, you're at a good start.
Absolutely. So for us, in Lake County Behavioral Health, what that's mean is investing in relationship and taking up opportunities and going. So I think also dominant culture has had this idea of, well, let's invite tribal people or First Nations people to the table. But what table is that? Right? And do you even want to come to this? Who built this table? Right? And so I, of course, continue to invite people to the table, whatever table that is, but I want to go to your table if I'm invited. And I want to sit down and I want to listen to you. And again, do a lot more listening than talking, but acknowledging who built this table is really important in moving that work forward.
And I think that's a very important piece. It's giving the power back to the tribal community. That shows that, the tribe is valued and that we are a sovereign government. Tribes are a sovereign government, and they have the responsibility of preserving the culture, getting the services to the people, and they have the responsibility of governing the community. It's a tribal, I think that often is overlooked, is that tribal sovereignty, that tribal government piece. And that's what needs to be acknowledged. And it has been my experience that we do have some counties that come to our tribe. We have CFTs that are held here at the tribe. And we live in a rural area here in Oakhurst, which is a part of Madera County. And so we appreciate that. And we even have lunch together. It really takes the policy out and just builds that human connection, that human relationship that is needed. And so, when they come to the tribe, or people come to the tribe, they get a better understanding of what's happening in the tribe. How is this tribe structured? They get to know our elders in our community and our youth. And we are such a small community that, we talk as a community, we decide as a community. So I appreciate when we are seen and that our sovereignty is acknowledged.
And even breaking it down even further, like Orianna is talking about, is when you get to start to have a relationship with someone in the tribe, don't hesitate to ask to participate in some of their activities that they may have. That in itself shows that you do have a heart, that you do want to participate and build a relationship with them. When I was working with our county, Fresno County, I took some of the workers from from Fresno County out to spiritual gatherings, and so that they could have a opportunity to just, if they wanted to, participate in a sweat lodge ceremony, see the dancers dancing and the people gathering together and what that's like, and really get down to the grassroots of the people's culture to understand a little bit better.
I appreciate, go ahead, Orianna.
I was going to say I just want to say, we're talking a lot about tribal governments and, that piece of it. But I think a big piece, and I wanted to make sure to mention this today because I do appreciate the audience and I appreciate everybody here, is that oftentimes I go to stakeholder meetings. Oftentimes I'm looking at data that's being provided from the county, but what's missing is our tribal data. I often don't see Indian Health Service data being shown. I don't see tribal TANF data being shared. I don't see the Native American substance abuse programs, Native American mental health programs data included in the state's data. And that's what data I would like to talk to. So to see, and I want to hopefully, you know, we start looking at these, that at the agencies outside of tribes that are servicing Native American communities and not forgetting them as well, because they also need a seat at the table.
Absolutely. That's an equity piece though, right? Again, where is data specific to tribal people represented? So in Lake County, we conduct a point in time count, which is where you go and you literally count all of the unhoused people in your county. And that data then goes to the feds and they determine various housing allocations. And as many people in this room are probably aware, the intersection of behavioral health and housing is growing. So for the first time this year, our PIT count counted people who identified as tribal or who were whatever it was, a tribal affiliation for the first time ever in 2024. So that should have been happening for a long time. I'm glad we finally did that, but that's important. And I also want to reflect on something Cyndi said, and maybe Orianna too, about engaging as a person and really being present as a whole person. And so often what I've seen with tribal engagement, especially for data or for putting pieces of information together or for grants or plans, it may be an outreach to the county or an entity to tribe and be like, hey, would you give us some data? Or could we do a survey? Or could we do this or that? And so being really mindful of what that is, that you're not just checking a box that says that you engage tribal people to satisfy a requirement at a superficial level, but recognizing that this is a marathon and not a sprint. And if you want to have meaningful change, if you live in that community, you need to ingrain in that community. You need to go, and if you can sit at the table and share a meal together, that would be great. So we've had a great example here with one of our tribes, Big Valley Rancheria, who is one of the tribes that holds the social services department. Now, we also have many landless tribes, like many other places in the United States, right, where they have been colonized and deprived of any land. And so Big Valley, actually, because they have the social services department, they host a monthly women's luncheon and also a dude food luncheon, which I love the name of that. And so for the past several months, we've come to this monthly luncheon where we sit down and we don't talk about work. We talk about, you know, what it is to be a mother or an auntie or a sister or a daughter in the times that we live in. And I have found that that's really meaningful and helps set the foundation for us to meet as people and get some good work done. So there is a lot of value in showing up as a real person and a whole person in these spaces and authentically engaging.
Mhm.
And showing your passion, you know, how important that is to have it for the, you know, first of all, you know, show your heart and show that your willingness, and that goes a long way. That speaks so much just to make that effort, you know, in providing that coming together and that trust that's needed.
Yeah, and with that, allowing the proper amount of time, you know, not having it to be rushed, not giving a policy to the tribe, you know, with a 30-day deadline that you need to sign this or it's not going to happen. To allow the time to build that relationship and not wait till that last minute, but to already have those conversations going is a huge important piece.
If I can jump in, Orianna, that's a great point. And I think it's also important for us to understand just the difference or how tribal governance is and how it's structured and how it intersects or differs from county government. So can you all maybe speak a little bit around that piece for us?
Well, our structure of our tribal government, we have our leadership who are elected leaders, and they oversee the economic portions. They oversee the social service piece of it. But then they also have to answer to our community, to the general membership, and to the tribe. So when we bring forward a program or we're having these meetings with the county, we have to bring that information back. And so we discuss it as a whole. First, it goes to council, and then it goes to, in our culture, we look to our elders for guidance. And so that, with all of that, that all takes time. And some of our elders, we have to talk to and explain things and get them on how the ins and outs of a program. So all of that is just, it doesn't happen overnight, because a lot of tribes have that small community. So we have to be able to answer those questions. But also, if we're going to provide services, or if we're going to get what the need is of our community, then we have to have those conversations as well. So we have to allot time for that. So our structure, our government structure, we have a constitution, and that's because, way back when they told us that we have to have a constitution. Those constitution, a lot of the tribes' constitutions weren't really written by the tribes. And so that's really not our structure of government. But in order to be federally recognized, then we have to have this. We have to have the constitution. So even, we're kind of forced to have like a structure that isn't really ours. And we're just trying to make it the best that we can, and still have braid in our cultural piece of it to this structure. So, but I just, I can't emphasize enough. It's just I always say, gotta be human. I understand policies are needed, and I appreciate them, but a lot of times, sometimes those policies stop the human and what we would in a direction that it should go because of a policy.
I love that so much. And I think, unfortunately, because colonization has affected every layer of society, and you talked about time. And so even the concept of time and how we measure and experience time is culturally dependent. And so Westerners, or descendants of colonizers, see time much differently than people from other places in the world. But we have this myopia where we think that our way is the only way. And so being humble and recognizing that, no, there are other ways is really important. And there's actually, I'm not an anthropologist, but there's a lot of anthropological data about why different places see time differently. And it's important to recognize that, and to intentionally center relationship and being a human in every moment. And even when there are places where we work in government and it's black and white and it has to be this way, acknowledging that and saying, I'm so sorry, I don't have control over this. This is what it is, but how do we move through this difficult moment together?
Right.
Thank you all so much for that. Can you all talk a little bit more about why and how NAVA's service providers, leadership, families, that we should all be engaged in the prevention, not just the planning piece, but also the prevention and implementation phase of things?
Well, I'm happy to kick that off. Again, it requires a lot of self-reflection, and it's a continuous journey of unpacking how my mindset is colonized, right? And how this impacts the way I see and engage with the world, and centering that intentionally. And so if you're a person that happens to look like me and you have privilege, also acknowledging that you can't be neutral on a moving train, right? And that's not my quote, that's Howard Zinn. And so if you're not part of those solutions and you're not actively resisting the effects of colonization and oppression, then you are part of the problem. And I realize that's a very radical statement, but it is true in my experience. And so it takes place every single day, looking at every piece of my work and how I touch this, and making sure that I am centering equity and justice, right? And that I am a tool to center equity and justice for those people that don't have a lot of power. And even let's unpack the fact that I can get away with speaking this way, and I get, oh my gosh, you're so passionate. Wow, where did you get your passion? And yet a person who looks more like Orianna or Cyndi, who is more melanated, right? They're like, oh, why are you so aggressive? Right? And so even the framing of that, like just recognizing that you have the power to do a lot more and you can give space to other people to have passion, because I have passion and I don't get viewed as aggressive, whereas other people will.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Look at all the yeses. I coming up, all of the, gosh, no. It's very powerful words that you're saying, and I appreciate everything, Elise, that you've shared from the moment that we've met. Like, you've just really ignited, and acknowledged and heard. It feels like you've heard, and that's all we could do, right? And that's what we need to move forward. And when looking at partners and why it's important to reach out to tribal partners and other agencies, it's because they're the ones who service our people. They're in our community. Those are the ones who see, just like the Surgeon General, her story. We have those are the ones that can share our stories. And so I think it's really important to have those voices at the table.
Also, I'd like to add that there's also the non-federally recognized tribes, and I always like to be supportive of them, and so that they're not forgotten, and those that are living in the urban areas. I please don't misunderstand me. I totally respect our tribes in our area, and they need that support, but don't forget the unrecognized tribes and their people, and how you can also build relationships with them. They often use their elders to come and support their families that at their meetings. So I just want to lift that up as well, and continue to have that passion. If I may, I'd like to read something that Jaya John, if those of you who know Dr. Jaya John, wrote and sent this to me, and I often like to share it. So I think this is a real opportunity. If I may read this to you. It says, true humility has little to do with learning about other cultures and everything to do with self-reckoning. It is a convicted, tireless, brave examination of the soul, forever asking the question, how are we participating in this long genocide of people and their ways? True humility acknowledges the generational damage of cultural supremacy, the ongoing arrogance of its mentality and approaches. It sheds its control, impulse, and opens organically into relationship. True humility lets its spirit be broken, not in paralyzing guilt, but in a conviction of justice and repair. True humility does not put the subject on a fiscal calendar. It plants the priority firmly in the heart of the mission. Cultural humility, when authentic, is a system people's way of saying, we have done great harm and we shall never go that way again. Ultimately, it is a faith in the devalued peoples, that they are true and full human beings with every sacred right and power to heal themselves, that the system is not to be the great authority, but the willing student and helper, and that the people must be now and forever regarded sacredly. Thank you for allowing me to read that.
Thank you, Cyndi, for sharing that. It just really kind of reinforces some of the messages that we've been hearing. It's just of the importance of us really needing to be humble in our engagement practices and to be present. So thank you so much for sharing that. So another question we have is, can you all share maybe some of the things that stand out with the work that's going really well in some of the counties that you know of, and what makes it be so successful?
I could share, I could speak on that. Well, now that I have the platform, I want to give a shout out to social worker out of Fresno County, Miss Jones. She is, we talk like probably twice a week about the caseload. She comes to the tribe. We have those open communications, and when we have an area where we're not in agreement with, then we talk through that. And she doesn't have a timeline. She never puts. She always asks, what do you feel? What does the tribe want? How's this going to work for the family? What's your ideas? And so I always really appreciate her for, making those steps. Working with Fresno County and Madera counties to talk about their ICWA policy, their ICWA handbook. Now, we put a lot of time, a group of us put a lot of time into creating that handbook, something so the social workers can have, while they're out in the communities, making contact with our families. So I do appreciate that. And a lot of times at our meetings, we do have representation, and it is acknowledged here of the non-federally recognized tribes too. And so I greatly and deeply appreciate that as well. That our neighboring counties, Madera, the one I'm in, and then Fresno, a neighboring one, does acknowledge in the spirit of ICWA. There's a lot of things that are coming out from the CPP planning. We met with the different counties. There's Madera County, and the tribe is looking at moving forward with implementing Family Spirit, which is a family home visiting program. So that's needed within our community. We've never had that. So that's just one project that we're working on, and appreciative of that. And then, the new deputy director over in Madera, got her cell phone number easily accessible. Same with down in Fresno, one of the deputy directors, phone number easily accessible. And again, it's just about that, just having that communication. And if there is any issues, just having that area or that opportunity to talk about concerns, so that we could move forward to better help our families.
Thank you. Cyndi, do you have anything to offer in terms of this?
Well, I just would like to add to what Orianna's sharing, because I'm in this partnership meetings that she spoke about earlier. And those are so important. And I if all the counties could have that, where they meet together with the tribes, and again, the non-federally recognized tribes, to be there and hear them and work with them the way, Orianna's sharing, actually coming to her, not her having to go to them. Those are really important steps right there that really build relationships and build that trust. So I really respect being able to be a part of these meetings as an elder and just share experience. So, having elders, there at the table in these meetings that have the experience working with the families, being there for the families, being a voice for the families that they know of that have cases, or just, knowing their personalities and explaining, how they view time. They're going to, if they're supposed to be at a meeting, with the county, if an elder asks for a ride, all of a sudden they're not going to turn that down. You know, their elders in their community are important. So, you know, they might be late to the meeting because they're going to take that elder where they need to take them first, you know. So understanding that and taking to heart, you know, the culture and the difference in the time and how time is viewed.
Thank you. And just one last question is, what advice would you all give to someone or to a county or leaders who has a desire but have been struggling to develop these relationships with their own tribal communities? What are some of those words of wisdom that you all can share with them?
Call, reach out, email, schedule a meeting. Just, you know, if you don't know who to contact, there's resources online. There's the Federal Register the BIA puts out. And then just going out and talking to people in the community about who's who's the leaders, who's the tribal leaders. And then don't leave out the non-federally recognized tribes. It's not their choice to be non-federally recognized. Doesn't mean that they're non-native. They're native people, Indian peoples that just have not been recognized. So
There was-
don't leave them out. Go ahead, Cyndi.
There was a meeting that the county, Fresno County had called together and asked many of the citizens of the tribes in our area. And they asked them to come again to the office, the county office. And there was hardly anyone who showed up. So I gave the advice that why don't you instead have this at this was an urban resource center, and have it there, that the people would feel much more comfortable and likely show up at the this program where it's that they feel at home there rather than, you know, someone else's home there at home. So and yes, that's what happened. You know, we had a good show up to that. So just understanding how important it is to bring these people together in their own environment where they feel more comfortable to be able to open up and you know, you get them in a place where they're not comfortable and it doesn't feel comfortable, then the likeliness of being able to open them up to conversation could very well be more difficult. So just understanding and recognizing that.
I appreciate and agree with both what Orianna and Cyndi said. And from my perspective, again, as belonging to the air quotes here, the dominant culture, right? I see a lot of mistakes happen when people try to engage and they want it to be on their terms. So engagement with any marginalized or oppressed people, for one, the onus of engagement is not on them. It's on you. It's not their responsibility to come and engage and fix this. It's on you as a person with privilege. And for two, having no ego. Don't get your feelings involved in this, because it is true that there might not be good feelings about the county. There is a lot of history there, right? And having space and humility to accept that and to hear that and to just sit with it and bear witness. So those I think are my first two jobs. Is my job is here to bear witness and to hear that and to acknowledge that. Because until we can get past that, we can't move forward. And it has nothing to do with my ego. It has nothing to do with my feelings, right? That's not the important part. And so I think if you can do that and be a full human being, you're going to be on good footing. And again, don't make promises that you can't keep, right? So do what you say and say what you do. Because we're all aware that there's been a lot of promises that haven't been kept. So don't do that. If you can't, just say you can't, and that's okay. And then, of course, endorsing that if you have the opportunities, the privilege of attending any type of gathering, do that and recognize that you're here in this community. I live where I work. This is my community too, right? And so investing in it like you live there, like you're raising children there, like you want to create a healthier space. So it's bigger than just you.
Thank you all so very much for your time. Do you have any other last final words? We have a couple of minutes left. Any other messages you'd like to share, or any stories of resilience or struggle that might come to mind that you want to share?
I just thank everybody for their time, and to keep the words that we said today and the advice that we give, try to apply it. A lot of times our day gets busy, and by 2 o'clock this afternoon, these words will be lost. But try to really feel it, because every single one of us has that decision to make that change. So
Recognize that the people, and I can't speak for every tribe, but in regards to the culture, you know, understanding that their viewpoint often is coming from a spiritual lens, and respect that, and you know, just include that. Ask those kinds of questions, you know, of how best to work with these families, you know, and look into again, you know, their practices and how they approach things, you know, in a spiritual way is often, you know, first of all, you know, and when you're in meetings, you know, look towards the elder in the room, show that respect, you know, and first ask them, you know, their opinion and how best to answer things. You know, they may be the quiet one in the room, but you know, be assured they're the ones that are really observing and listening, and so you know, they are the ones that have the knowledge. And if you build that respect from them, then that's a real door opening right there. So again, I also too, thank you for listening.
Well, thank you all so very much. We appreciate, we just can't express our sincere thanks, and just in your honesty and sincerity in this dialogue. So I hope folks just receive some important messages and can really take those to heart and really truly hang on to those when we engage in our prevention work.